All right.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for whoever is watching and going to watch soon. Myself is Avinash Kumar Singh, and my partner Sarah Ahmed is also here. We are from India Future Society and hosting an event called Future of Cryptocurrency in India. We have two guests with us, Nikesh Lalchandani and Peter Xing. Let me introduce briefly about Nikesh Lalchandani. He's an ex-senior executive with the CBA, which is a Commonwealth Bank of Australia, where he was a head of payment architecture, head of payment innovation, and also head of emerging technology. Actually, in fact, he's the one of the first. He is the one of the person behind the reason why we have real-time payment in Australia and contactless payment in Australia. So, massive achievement from him. He's also implemented several technology and methods for cross-border bank, blockchain, cryptocurrency exchange, and he's also involved with the policymaker at higher level in Australia for cryptocurrency and regulation regarding that. He's also a contributor for policy and strategy and architecture for New South Wales government and especially focus around payment, banking, and blockchain, which of course cover cryptocurrency. The most important thing, he launched a book called Payment and Banking in Australia from Coins to Cryptocurrency last year, which is like first one of the first book of such kind from the Australia. And actually,
I'm on video.
I'm on TV.
And most importantly, so apart from these all things, I can continue reading about himself that he has so long list of achievement. But the last but not the least, he's also director and co-founder of several companies, and some of them are multinational companies, including InPay Tech, which is recently acquired by an ASX listed company. So thank you, Nikesh. Thank you for joining us. Our another guest,
Thanks.
Peter Xing, is also quite of a person who is more on transhumanist side. Actually, he's a keynote speaker and writer of transhumanism, very active in the field, especially in Australia. He's a co-founder of an organization called Transhumanism Australia, which is I am also a part of. And he try to dedicate his time to help society transcend the limitation of human biology using science and technology. He's also worked with the KPMG as a um, as an innovation manager, I think as a director of innovation and helping organization to navigate through time of change of disruption in the technology. He's also active role as a Singularity faculty for Singularity Australia, as well as a global faculty for Singularity, a university which is in the USA. He's executive member of Science Party Australia as well. So you can see the Science Party, science, transhumanism, these are the passion of Peter. And the most importantly, he recently co-founded Transhuman Coin, which is a research and charity-oriented token, which we're going to talk as well today. So thank you both. Thank you for both of you for your time. And we can start discussion from here to continue. So thank you again, both of you, Nikesh and Peter, to join. So I will start with a very basic question for both of you, because there's a lots of people from India and maybe outside India as well. They know about cryptocurrency. There's a term cryptocurrency everywhere. They heard in the news, a newspaper, here and there in their news feed, but they have no idea what cryptocurrency is all about. So can you tell in more of simple words, with maybe an example, what cryptocurrency is all about? Nikesh?
Sure. Look, I can help take that, or Peter, if you feel free to do it as well. So once again, thank you everyone. Thank you, Avinash. Thanks for inviting me to have a chat. We got Peter here, fantastic brains in that crypto area. Look, what is cryptocurrency? Look, I think this is a very open-ended question and a very good question. And what cryptocurrency is really going to form the debate for years to come. Essentially, cryptocurrency is like money, a currency, but it only exists in an electronic digital form. It doesn't have any other existence outside that form. Generally, that's what cryptocurrency is. So it's a type of currency that only exists in the ether, if you like. Peter, do you want to anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, no, definitely. I think you got that spot on. It is a currency, and it's like sort of almost as if whatever people believe it to be. Kind of like how people believe that money has a role to play in our society today. The only difference, I guess, is whether the government, in all its infrastructure, and the military, and the police, the health infrastructure, whether that supports that currency and treats it as, legal tender or not. And that is the challenge that we have right now. So we are seeing, this sort of lingering Bitcoin currency that started back in 2010, with the white paper, and it's starting to come out into the wild and crossing the chasm into the mainstream. And it's starting to challenge the traditional sort of fiat currency that we know of it as today, including globally with the US dollar dominance and, with potentially gold as well. So there's so many things that we can think about as a currency, what it can mean as a store of value, as a medium of exchange, and as a unit of account. So all those terms we can talk about in financial terms, but at the end of the day, will you accept cryptocurrency for your salary, for your deposit on a house, right? Is that something that you believe to be valuable as we know it today?
That's
Exactly.
very
And I think when you look at something like Bitcoin and compare it to the dollar, I think it's grabbed everyone's imagination. There are a few advantages, and look as you said, there are a number of features that we have with money, and I tell people that look, we really invented money because at some point in time, as our technology improved, we stopped trusting each other. Right. So what happened was that in your small village, we would trust one another. If we needed something, we would gladly exchange it, and we wouldn't expect anything in return. There was no barter. And then one day with technology, we could travel long distances, and and that's the point where we had to exchange something of value, right? So you needed a medium of exchange, and then that's where money came to life. And if you look at how the world operates today, it's incredible. I don't know if an alien came on Earth and saw how passionate we are about this thing called money, if they would recognize anything similar to their own world. Because look, really, we've taken it to a whole new dimension where the store of value power of money, particularly. I think, and I don't know what you think, and this is why I like what you've done, Peter, with your transhuman coin. I think the store of value is really a corruption of what money is, right? So before you could store a bit of grain, but only for a certain amount of time. Now you can store money, and the difference between someone who's rich and someone who's not is how much that's stored.
That's right, and that intergenerational inequality that's causing right now as well. And so, yeah, like you say, when we just had bartering back in the days, and this was a means of saying, well, if you believe that this note, this token, is something worth value of a cow, this is the sort of exchange of amount that you'll get. But now we're seeing, with things that are starting to compound globally, like we're in a globalized world, and we keep talking about this. I guess it's a circular economy. How do you keep everything within one community? And we're seeing acceleration of these tokens that are very community, focused on. It started with NFTs, right? NFTs were just like, okay, you can support artists, and this is everyone's passionate about this type of artwork and this cause. But tokens itself now can actually be used between the communities. Say a small town, you've seen cities like Miami and New York adopt their own coins, so that when you spend Miami coin in Miami, you're helping that local economy. So you're supporting the local cafes, you're supporting the local restaurants. And it's keeping that value inside the city rather than taken away.
Yeah,
Yes.
and I think that's a wonderful thing, Peter. And when I was doing work with the New South Wales government, I said, I don't know how many of our audience are familiar with, what's happening there, but they came up with this Dine and Discover voucher, right? As part of a
cool.
digital identity that they're developing. And then, previously, before this age of technology, governments during a tight period would print more money, right? And then what people would do with that money is they would say, hey, great, I'm getting money. It's tough times. I'm just going to hoard this money in my pocket and not spend it because I know, tomorrow I might not be able to, I might not have any money. But what the government wanted was, no, we don't want you to hoard this money. We want you to spend it so that the economy can improve, so that other people can benefit from the same money, so the money can circulate. And in the Great Depression, they had stamp paper, right, was used to ensure that every week, basically, the money had to be circulated. And if it wasn't circulated, it would be worthless. And with the Dine and Discover voucher, it was fantastic. He was in New South Wales. Here was some money that you had to spend. You had to spend on a local provider, otherwise it was worthless. What you were saying, and that those sorts of things I think are going to be more and more possible with digital currencies, central bank issued digital currencies, and those sorts of things. So, I think it could be quite exciting.
It gives so many additional policy levers, That's such a genius move by the New South Wales government with this kind of Discover. And those are the sort of things you can bake into, central bank digital currencies, programmable money and smart money. But yeah, sorry, Avinash, I know you got a whole bunch of questions.
No, these are very interesting discussion actually. But I always wonder that these are still very technical
Right.
for general audience, and
Am I
they are a
audible?
bit far away. Yeah, yes, Sarah, we can hear you. It's still delayed though.
Yeah, actually, it's such a yeah. It's a very interesting points which are coming up from this entire cryptocurrency thing. So I was wondering, like, what is the scenario? Like, what could be the future prospect of cryptocurrency in India? What do you people think? I mean, that would be really a great thing to hear from you.
Do you want to have a crack at that first, Nikesh?
Yeah, sure. I think look. I think it's a few things. So number one, what you've got is you've got an opportunity now to give like a currency that the masses can issue. I think one problem that we have, for example, in India, is a farmer can't get 2 rupees for a bag of onions, for a kilo of onions, right? A farmer who's grown some onions can't get 2 rupees for that for those onions. Whereas here in the West, all of us would not think twice about paying $2.50 for the same bag of onions. So there's a tremendous amount of inequality that's happening. The ability to exist digitally, to be able to exchange in a global marketplace with something like cryptocurrencies that's universal, that everyone can recognize, is fantastic. I mean, the problem is that with the Australian dollar, Indian rupee, and all those sorts of things, you get this problem in exchange. The money can't flow freely. And I think the newer age can allow people to independently, like one of the things that came after the Second World War, when they actually invented the IMF and the World Bank, was they wanted to ensure that the conditions that created Nazi Germany don't occur again. And those conditions were that a country became so poor that it had no other choice but to to fight back. And what they did after World War II was they suggested, look, we need to come up with some international currency that people can trust. And unfortunately, there was a debate between one of the great economists of all time, John Keynes, and the US economist around what should be that international currency. And sadly became the US dollar, when I think John Keynes wanted it to become this new thing, the Bancor. And having that can I think can enable so many smaller countries to once again have a voice in the world of commerce.
Yeah, definitely. And it's just really good to see what happened in India initially with demonetization. I mean, that was a terrible sort of initial leap of getting away from paper-based money, but what that led to was a lot of innovation in digital wallets, having the ability to bank all those people that didn't have a bank in the first place, and they were just keeping a lot of things in paper. And so what that drove was cryptocurrency revolution, which we're seeing adoption since the Shiba Inu drop of, the Indian COVID relief fund. But it's just really interesting to see that now that you can have your own currency, potentially that's not the US dollar, as Nikesh is saying, something that can actually be driven globally, that is determined by the local communities in terms of the value. So you could actually potentially have individual towns having their own currency, that they can keep them locally and all the values stored within that closed economy. And also accelerating that digital transfer of value all around the world, so that you feel like you're part of this global economy rather than just part of the local town or India itself. What's the side thing that I'll probably make a comment on is, you don't want to end up where the extractive nature of cryptocurrency starts taking over. You can see that through, for example, in the Philippines right now with play to earn type cryptocurrencies, where people are earning cryptocurrencies through playing games. And what that's done is that it's actually allowing them to earn more minimum wage than they are currently in their day job, which is a great thing, right? But what that means is that they're actually locked into this sort of Western push of gamification, and it's actually people building guilds around these players, actually lending them these digital assets. So it's like lending you a cow, and you're the farmer, and you're using that cow to plow the farms. Then you're going to pay the rent back to the Western world, and it's sort of still that sort of extractive nature. So what I guess the future of cryptocurrency in India could do is be the platforms themselves and actually drive it from the bottom up, rather than have some external cryptocurrency from another country that's trying to extract that value from those local communities. And that's like
Yeah,
real exciting
yeah.
times for that innovation.
That's very true. Though I mean, you mentioned demonetization, and that's the evaluation of digital currency and what happened in India in past couple of years. But at the same time, the fact that cryptocurrency, which is focused on decentralization, right, and government of any country is threatened by this process itself, and any economy in any country is driven by I think somehow it's all driven by the money. The
Yeah.
control over money they have, and the institution sitting on the top of it, how they control how the money flow, and everything is all depend on that. Doesn't that means cryptocurrency kind of disrupt this process? And because disruption will happen, the government will crash, and it will create more chaos than maybe a smoother future world. I mean, what do you have to say on that?
Yeah, well, Nikesh might have some inside sort of view on that right now.
Yeah,
Especially India
look, I think
being more based
yeah,
on cash. So
yeah. Look, I think we got a really good signal actually on Friday from the Prime Minister of India, Narendra Modi, and he said, look, we've got to work out how to make this cryptocurrency safe. So I think they're embracing it. That's the signal. But the problem is, and we need to acknowledge this, right? The problem is it's incredibly powerful, right? It's like fire. When humankind first discovered fire, look, it was a tool. It could also be used for immense destruction. It's the same thing with cryptocurrency. The thing that makes it powerful is it's possible now to transfer value to a terrorist without any identity required, and for that terrorist to wreak havoc over the world. And this is something that no government wants. This is something that whether you're the US or India, it's just not something that you want. You don't want the feeding of terrorism. I think the important thing here, and this is what we need to solve as a community, is identity, right? So one thing I think that the West kind of unfortunately has gone, I think, in the wrong direction of, is supporting privacy over identity, right? So what that means is that they'd rather be anonymous, than be able to, identify a counterparty. developing countries like India, like the former farmer I told you about, if you knew that farmer's identity and you knew, for example, their wallet address, you would be able, their public key, you would be able to transfer value directly to that farmer, knowing that, look, this person is the poorest person in India. I need onions. I want my money to go to him, and then we'll pay the network whatever fee it requires to transfer those onions to me, or whatever the produce was. And I think that change, that ability to bring identity with a cryptocurrency is of immense value and could really benefit developing countries like India in terms of tracking. And this is why they did demonetization. This is why they got the GST in India. Is primarily not because poor people weren't paying taxes. Poor people don't earn enough money in India to pay any tax at all, even if they declared 3 times their income. The problem was that the middle people that dish out the money, like the government, in cases can't get money to the end people. They provide incentives, crops, and so on. And the problem is that the government could not get the money out there. With something like digital identity, with cryptocurrency, it'll be possible to get money directly to the source. And I think that's just a powerful thing. But we need to solve, I think, as a community, doing the likes of what Peter's doing with his coin, has developed these cryptocurrencies that allow you to do the right thing for society, allow you to properly identify counterparties, make the world a safer place, essentially.
Yeah, no, that's really well said, Nikesh. And I think, the digital identity is so important. There's some really interesting projects that allows decentralization with digital identity as well. I'm not sure if you came across Proof of Humanity, like I was just talking to Avinash and his friend before, and that allows you to, use anti-cyber approaches through your network of peers that validate each other on the Ethereum network, and that actually proves that you are the human behind that wallet address. So that is a form of almost KYCing onto it, and also having that anti-cyber unique wallet as a human being. But what that allows is things like universal basic income to be passed on to every single human that's validated on the blockchain. And so this is a really great instrument to actually disrupt poverty, right? And the inequality that happens when you can't get that funding from government to the source of where it's directed to. Transhuman coin, like you say, is something that we actually want to dish out directly to the projects that need it, and we can prove that with the wallet address transfers, with the donations. So when we donated to lifespan.io, which is a crowdfunding platform for longevity projects, we can actually show to the world that this $10 million transhuman coin donation was made directly to the lifespan.io wallet, right? And they're able to prove that on the Binance Smart Chain transactions. And so this is like something that completely disrupts the funding model.
Yeah. Well, because we already mentioned
just a wonderful.
Yeah, go ahead, Nikesh.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Sorry. No, I was just saying that's a wonderful thought, Peter. I think. You go.
I'm just saying we already mentioned a few times transhuman coin, and can you guys hear me, right?
Yeah.
Cool. I'm just saying because we already mentioned a few times transhuman coin, and transhuman coin is a coin of future of currency, future of humanity. So actually, the question is on that. Peter, can you describe a little bit more about transhuman coin? What is that all about?
Yeah, that's right. I'll just do a bit of an elevator pitch for it. So transhuman coin, like you say, it's a charity-oriented token. So we're actually a dedicated token for the transhumanism movement. Avinash and I have been with Transhumanism Australia, helping the community learn about technologies that are out there that are increasing our healthy lifespans through DNA research, genomics, and biotech and things like that. And also intelligence. How do we enhance our intelligence with, not just looking at our smartphones, but how do we actually upgrade our brains to actually tackle the challenges that we have across challenging humanity right now. So that's enhancing our intelligence and ultimately improve our well-being. We make sure no one's left behind as part of the transhumanism movement. And so for the last 7 years, we've been building out a community, but we've never had sort of something that brought everyone together behind a single economic incentive. We wanted to do this back in 2017, but the crypto markets have crashed. And then I think now we've got in South Africa, our transhumanists led the charge here. So Dr. Charles Awuzie and Jenny essentially created the coin, and we joined on board. And now it's actually something that all the transhumanists around the world are adopting as their official currency. Every transaction that happens with transhuman coin, whether it's a buy, a sell, or a transfer, there's like a VAT to it, like a GST. So 2% of the transactions go to the existing holders, including the transhuman fund wallet. So that actually incentivizes holding, but also it builds up the pool of funds that we have to make those donations to the likes of the researchers in longevity and intelligence. And also 2% goes to the liquidity pool. So it expands the pool that is able to be used for buying and selling. And another 2% goes to the marketing. So we can actually promote transhumanism through transhuman coin and accelerate the movement together. So it's a great sort of incentive for this circular economy of transhumanism all around the world. And that actually achieving, I think we got up to about $5 million in market cap in US at the moment. And we're looking to list on FTX very shortly. So hopefully we can make a big impact for transhumanism all around the world.
That sounds fantastic, Peter. And again, I'm going to ask another question on the following the transhuman coin. I mean, I can see there's a different system, different mechanism there with the transhuman coin in terms of how much money holder will receive and how much will go for donation and charity. But if I ask the very basic question, maybe hard question, how is it different from any other currency out there?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think tokens are easy to mint. Like anyone can go to a website and just follow a boilerplate, drop-down menu and create your own token. But ultimately, the value is in the community. So what is the community that actually finds value in the network effects and that part of that circular economy you want to build? And so for us, it was the transhumanism movement. I mean, this is the movement that started out in the 70s, when science fiction started to get really exciting about possible futures of living indefinitely through science and technology, improving our health span, uploading your brain, to the cloud and being able to actually, live in a digital immortality and also travel to different planets at the speed of light, those sort of science fictions back in the 70s. But yeah, all recently we're starting to see the movement, the science fiction become science fact in some sense. They're doing human trials right now to extend the healthy human lifespan by 30% that they've achieved in mice through looking at senescent cells, through looking at NAD plus, the precursor to these essentially enzymes that wear our bodies down, and it helps repair them when we have to make replications. And brain-computer interfaces with Elon Musk's Neuralink and a whole bunch of other technologies that accelerated in the things that you're working on, Avinash, at UTS, really connecting and deciphering our brains to actually understand that and translate that into a machine. So this is the sort of exciting part that we're living in. And transhumanism has never been this exciting before in the history of the planet.
That sounds fantastic. And that's kind of bring me to again back to Nikesh. So you are in the policy maker among the government in Australia, and of course policy thought process, what's going on behind the scene. Of course, there's a lots of concept ideas generate that can kind of give you what global movement will look like. I mean, from the government point of view, from different society. I'm not talking about people, I'm talking about government. For example, you mentioned Narendra Modi have recently want to bring together everyone. And in fact, I heard in India, they are going to pass a law where cryptocurrency can't be used as a currency, but more as an asset, more like a share, if I'm saying correctly. So, I mean, it go back to the barter system we just talking initially in the beginning, and you use the asset to barter with some other things, and in a way it become currency anyway indirectly. So what do you say on that? I mean, where these politics going in with the crypto?
Yeah. Look. I think this is what we were touching on before. I think the corruption of money started with the use of it as a store of value. And the problem with a lot of cryptocurrencies is, if you look at what Satoshi intended originally with this cryptocurrency, was that it's not a store of value, it's a medium of exchange. And it's a medium of exchange that doesn't require an intermediary, It doesn't require a middle person, right? In the old days, you needed a bank to issue the coins. This one, it doesn't require an intermediary. This one is Bitcoin is something that we all can issue, and we can all exchange without using an intermediary. I think from a policy point of view, particularly like if you look at monetary policy, and whether you like it or not, right? So people say, "Oh, look, I'm not interested in monetary policy." Unfortunately, yeah, unfortunately, it guides our lives. So if you're an NFP, if you're like an artist, you're a musician, you're an economist. It doesn't matter what you do. We're all slaves to this form of money. Now, I think what Transhuman does, what all these new age cryptocurrencies are doing, they're challenging the very foundations that we have on what is money, right? And I think the more we do that, right? So, for example, if you look at it from a policy point of view, we'll quickly discover that if the government could issue money freely, right, they could just print money, but we didn't do it in a one-dimensional way. We did it in a certain way where, for example, we had health dollars, and health dollars can only be spent on your own health. We had food dollars, and food dollars can only be spent on food for you. Right, and we had these different types of currencies with different types of purposes, and there was one which was the traditional money. What we'd find very quickly is that, and you see this today, that a $1 worth of currency, can buy you a certain amount of food. It can't buy you any property at all, right? It can't buy you any property, right? And that's why the cause of that is the corruption of money. But what if we gave everybody an unlimited supply of money that they could spend on their own health? An unlimited supply of money that they could spend on, feeding themselves, particularly for the poor, right? You'd find that there would be enough to go around for everyone. It's only when we get into this whole store of value that the whole problem arises. And I think from a policy point of view, particularly if you look at central bank digital currencies, we can start to see, currencies that are doing good for humanity, like Transhuman, like currencies that aid donations, like food currencies, like health currencies, pop up independently of the old currencies that we had to really, drive forward, what we were talking about before, like that minimum wage where everyone is equal. But no longer are we feeding, this insatiable desire to accumulate wealth. I think that's going to be like an interesting policy movement, and I think a lot of governments, particularly in the developing world, are going to start to look at these currencies as a way of achieving that policy objective.
Yeah, definitely. And you're seeing that happen in China already. Like they can actually have money that has an expiry date, just like with those diners cover vouchers, where they expire on the 30th of June 2022. Use it or lose it, guys. All right. And so the Chinese yuan, digital yuan, they can actually bake in these, programmable money, smart money that you could only spend it at certain parts of the economy and actually spend it at, within a certain period of time, so that you can't do this hoarding, right? It's this the store of value makes no sense. And that's the sort of downside of Bitcoin. I guess that's like where you're getting at there, Nikesh. There's a lot of whales in the Bitcoin community where all they are doing is rent sinking and extracting and storing that value. And it's the same story all over again, with this invention of the fiat currency in the first place.
Yeah.
So if we could turn central bank digital currencies into a mechanism by which we actually distribute equality there, we also have to avoid things like, the backlash that you get with, do you remember the dole cards that actually dish out? You can't spend on alcohol, for example. If that was the card that people were using at the bottle, at the shopping centers, it actually creates a stigma as well from society. So it has to be in a way that, everyone has that same level, is treated equally. So even the rich had to spend Bitcoins, on whenever they're making these purchases, just to get rid of any of that stigma for inequality. But yeah, I think it's going to be a great innovation, seeing off the back of what China's done. I think US is contemplating already, and potentially could be done by USDC, the Circle company, or something else that the US government comes through, depending on how badly the debt burden becomes in the treasury and how much more money they print. And we're seeing it in Nigeria as well with the e-Naira. They've already implemented that, and they've got over 200 people already using it. Whereas the other side of the coin, if we may say, is the countries that are adopting Bitcoin as their fiat currency. So, we've got El Salvador, potentially next one could be Ukraine, and a whole bunch of South American countries that want to become independent of US dollar as sort of swaying their, internal politics as well as the monetary policy. So yeah, it's going to be a really exciting time around this programmable money, and hopefully Australia gets on board finally instead of just doing their research in the RBA.
Yeah, that's really exciting time with lots of exciting thing happening like cryptocurrency. But again, I mean, the cryptocurrency still doesn't connect well with the more general users who might be buying rather than those whales, those rich who know it's using more as a shares, like using as more as an asset. And so, and I think one reason behind that is some kind of stigma. And on all those news that suddenly Bitcoin crashes or suddenly market has the millions of dollars disappear, and there's a volatile nature of the currency itself. So don't you think that maybe that's where the policy comes in, right? A policy which kind of put some kind of law and regulation, so control this volatile nature of the currency so it become more stable. But again, if we do that, if the policy maker and politics comes in, it becomes the same currency as we have now. So there's a kind of um, egg and chicken sort of connection here. If you do that, then you end up with that, or and other way around. So where
Yeah.
we, I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, please,
Yeah,
Nikesh.
I agree, and like a similar sort of thing happened with digital cameras, right? So Kodak and look, a lot of smart people, even I thought when digital cameras first came out, the big problem was how do you print them? How do you print them? And Kodak thought, okay, look, printing pictures is going to be the next big industry. Forget about developing film, that's out, but printing photos is going to be the next big thing. And what happened? The whole industry changed. And I think what we're witnessing now is old habits. To your point, old habits die hard. We see this new thing called cryptocurrency, and we think it's an asset because we're just used to it. We see everything as an asset that we can hoard. But I think as time goes on, with more and more cryptocurrencies, people will suddenly go, okay, look, it's not so much about the holding of this; it's about the flow. It's about how it flows through the economy. And wealth is not like gold. It's not something you can store. Wealth is the ability to produce for the benefit of humanity. And as we get used to those ideas, I think we'll move away from cryptocurrency being the store of value, but other things like medium of exchange. And I think there's a bigger step here, right? And this is one thing that transhumans got at. It's not just like a medium of exchange, but the whole blockchain as a ledger enables us to share information, so we can go to that position that we were talking about before, where it's about trust now, right? So I can trust you because I know who you are. Before I could only trust 15 people because there were 15 people in my village. Now there are 8 billion people that I can trust because we've got the compute power to look at everyone's ledger, and we can do it at a scale that we could never do before. But we've no longer got this money thing that's holding us to actually doing a physical transaction immediately. We're now independent and free of that, right? And I think that's a big discovery, and it's kind of that adoption curve. So we're going to see people initially take to it because it's a store of value, but over time I think they'll loosen up.
Yeah, big time. Like you say, they say evil happens in the dark, right? But when it's all out in the open on the BSC scan, ETHScan, blockchain.com, it's one big spreadsheet, right? That people can actually rely on to see to have that unit of account, and also the programmability of it as well. But what's really exciting for me is also these new ways of governing these tokens. So with decentralized autonomous organizations, rather than relying on a central government to dish out those policies and where these tokens go and what they can be used for, you can actually have all the token holders decide and vote using these decentralized methods. So DAOs, I think you might have seen the US Constitution was recently up for auction. It was like a paper version of it, one of the original, I think, 11 copies of the US Constitution. And the community in the US actually formed a Constitution DAO to purchase this Constitution on Sotheby's, like the auction of it. There's like an NFT, right? Non-fungible token that you can prove that this is the US Constitution original copy. And so, unfortunately, they didn't win. They got beaten out by like this other buyer. But they were able to compile 50 million US in the space of 48 hours. And through self-governance, actually vote that they were actually going to make that acquisition. So this type of new governance model behind a token is starting to converge on the three main use cases of cryptocurrency that we're seeing actually happen quite well. Tokenization and the NFTs, and also now we've got the DAOs on the governance. So it's quite an interesting time around payments and tokenization. So yeah.
So, that's again, it sounds very fascinating, but I'm more criticizing this part, and that's where so that I can get more information. So if you see, let's say cryptocurrency adopted, for instance, in India by government, there's a law now, and let's say it replaced 70 to 80% flow of currency replaced by cryptocurrency than the existing currency in India. How you will gonna see country like India? Can you imagine or give me or give us a picture? How does it look like?
Yeah, I mean, do you want to have a go at that, Nikesh, first?
Yeah, no, you look, go for it. I think, look, my view is that we're going to see, in that economy, we're going to see so much empowerment of the people who previously didn't have a voice, right? So we've got some major problems that we need to solve in order to get there. Number one, I think something like 80% of people in India still don't have, viable access to the internet. Giving everyone a voice on the marketplace, so that that example that I gave you, the poorest of poor farmers is able to sell their goods on an open market, at market price. I think that's what we're looking for, and I think that's something that is fantastic. I know that in India the farmers bill is very controversial, and look, I don't want to start debating it, but the fact is that I think the good news, I feel, is that the government is genuinely trying to do the right thing. They might be misguided in places. I think demonetization was, I agree with Peter. It was, a great attempt, but essentially it was a bit of a flop. But they're trying to, their heart's in the right place. They're trying to, make this a reality. We'll get there eventually, because the intention's good, no matter which side of Indian politics you're on. But it's just going to take a lot of time. And I think that vision of that open marketplace where the poorest person has got a voice is something, if you look at the history of India and Indian independence, even Mahatma Gandhi with his views on look, don't buy from the big producers your cotton, produce it yourself. That's kind of the where we're coming back to, and I think it's taken us 70 years, but we're going to get there. And the good news is that you can see that happening with some of this technology.
Yeah, that's really exciting. And yeah, like you say, if the entire country, like 70%, starts using cryptocurrencies, I think the government will be pretty worried if it's not a central bank digital currency as well. They'd be like, how do we enforce monetary policy now, right? If we were to increase interest rates, it would only affect the 30% of the people still using our native currency. So I think that's why they're banning the treatment of cryptocurrencies as a means of exchange. So transactions in cryptocurrencies as opposed to investment, which is, they have the right intentions, but the investment side was flawed, because that's essentially what causes that sort of value. But what happens if it is dominated, like just through VPNs and worked around, right? That means the government will start to lose more and more of its control over the central, I guess, the government itself, in terms of being able to implement their monetary policy. It could sway towards the people voting to get Bitcoin adopted as the fiat currency. It could lead to individual towns start creating their own local currencies, right, and interacting in those circular economies. But all that means that concept of nations, right? And I know Modi's a Hindu nationalist. I think that's why he's against it, because it goes against the concept of being one country, having that one currency, right? So Bitcoin could be the answer, but I think likely is that central bank digital currency is what's coming, and that will enable the Indian government to retain that control, just like China has, and just like I think some of the African countries like Nigeria have as well.
That's very interesting. Yeah, that kind of future is a good, but same time there's also lots of question for sure, and nobody really know how it's gonna impact. I mean, there's a one simple finance policy change, and the whole market either break down. A change happens so fast that certain part of the group of country change a lot. The companies just grow a lot. So a big change in currency itself is actually could be unimaginary change in the society, I believe. So, so the very last question, I mean, I want to ask again that, so I know, I mean, we know there's a Bitcoin, there's a ETH, Ethereum, there's a two platform there. People usually buy the cryptocurrency. And at this moment, these two are out there. I'm not sure, maybe there are more, but at least these two are popular one, and most of the tokens are created on them. Actually, more on Ethereum, they all are operated on there. So if someone want to buy, for example, Transhuman coin, which is more focused on humanity and token for charity, for doing something which required in future and for pretty much everyone. So so how to buy? Simple question.
I love that. That's totally not a shill question. That's okay. So the
Not
Transhuman
yet,
coin, yeah. Transhuman coin is on the Binance Smart Chain. So Binance Smart Chain is originally a fork of Ethereum. So you can actually use that on your MetaMask. Just add the Binance Smart Chain network, and you can then transfer in some Binance coin. You can get that from Binance Exchange or CoinSpot in Australia and other exchanges. So once you have some Binance coin in your MetaMask, get a Pancake Swap or any other decentralized exchanges to swap off a Transhuman coin. But the benefit of Binance Smart Chain is that it's, if you notice, if you ever use Ethereum, the gas fees are ridiculous. Like every transaction could be $200 US, and they're moving on to proof of stake, but we don't know when that's going to happen. So in the meantime, Binance Smart Chain, it adopts a proof of stake sort of mechanism, but it's actually a proof of stake authority. So they have 12 trusted validators. They then delegate that authority to stake those coins. So it does sacrifice a bit of decentralization, but it's a really great way to get fast transactions and low gas fees as an MVP. And what we want to do is move it to the other networks so that we're not just sort of solely relying on Binance Smart Chain all the time. We want to go on to the new ones like Solana and Polygon Network, and look at Cardano and Pulse Chain. So these are sort of multi-chain type of initiatives that we can sustain the long term of Transhuman coin.
And go back to Nikesh, as I know, I heard in the news in Australia that CBA is kind of implementing such mechanism for their payment method, the payment app which we have in the phone. So are we to see this kind of exchange can be happen on the straight away in the phone with the CBA app?
I think, yeah. Look, I think this is quite interesting. So the CBA app, and look, I'll tell you, it's not going to allow payments.
Okay.
It's just purely going to be a buy, store, and hold wallet, right? So it's 100% store value. You won't be able to get the access to the private key. It's just for people who said, look, I want a Bitcoin, but it's very hard for people actually to get hold of a Bitcoin. They don't trust the markets. They don't trust the wallet holders. So CBA is coming in as a sort of trusted party. But even then, even though you've got the brand there, I mean, there's a lot of questions as to the legality of the guarantee. It's not backed by the government or anything. So if the custodian goes broke, like what was the company? Mount Gox,
yeah.
Right? If they become another Mount Gox, a custodian, and this is not CBA. We're talking about the custodian goes broke. Then are you entitled to your Bitcoins? Probably not, right? So because it's not a recognized custody asset, and likewise, I think the spread is going to be. Has anyone tried to get FX through CBA or a bank? It's 8%.
You got to do it OTC too.
The cost of Bitcoin now is 80,000. To $80,000 buys you one Bitcoin in Australian dollars. So CBA will probably charge you 83,000, right? So it's not. No, seriously. Like look at the US dollar rates today. So it's not going to be that effective, but it will get people used to the idea. I think all of these things are getting people used to the idea of cryptocurrencies and getting them more familiar with it. But the revolution's still, going to happen. And I don't necessarily think it's going to be, like Peter said, it's not going to be something like Bitcoin, even though that's fantastic and it's inspired us. It's going to be these other things that we're talking about, like these NFTs, like CDBCs, the sorts of things like the Transhuman coin is doing. It's going to be things like that that really, change the world. But this is getting us thinking about, what is money, which I think is a fantastic question to ask, because we've been stuck with the same idea for over 100 years. It's time that it changes.
Well, it's a great education piece. You know, the people that get into crypto, like all of a sudden have an MBA in finance and economics. I feel like, you know, they understand what minting is because that's what the US government is, Federal Reserve is doing right now.
So,
It's just
absolutely. Like I had the debate with a very senior person in Treasury and went on for hours. He said, but cryptocurrency doesn't exist. I don't understand how it's real. What is it? What is it? What is it? And then I said, but what's money? Oh no, that's
what's
backed by
money?
the government.
Bretton
Blah,
Woods.
blah, blah, blah,
Yeah.
blah. I said, yeah, but then, you know, like there's no gold behind it or anything, and the government can change and they can print more. I said, no, you can trust the government. Who can you trust with crypto? So we had this debate right for hours, and then eventually I discovered that he's now you know, left the bank and he's doing, you know, his own crypto thing, and he's the biggest advocate. So, you know,
he's been converted.
It's
Well
going to happen to everyone.
Change in
Yeah, it feels
religion.
like it's exponential. It's like 2, 4, 8, you know. But yeah, that's totally, and I totally agree with you on the CBA stuff as well. I mean, they're going to charge you. They're going to charge you a CBA Pro, okay, just like Coinbase does, and you'll get that additional insurance on the amount you invested in for custodianship. Like, there's so many ways to make money that way, and the closer they can get to your bank account, I think the more easily you'll be able to do that swap to fiat. So it's kind of like, well, roundups, right? Easier savings, just round it up and put it onto my home loan, you know, offset accounts, do it all that, put it all into Bitcoin. But yeah, at the end of the day, not your keys, not your crypto. So really exciting though. What I do think that transhuman coin, the future of those as well, like we want that just to become the official currency of all the people that are part of the movement of transhumanism. And that way we stop thinking of the value of transhuman coin and other cryptocurrencies back into like fiat terms. So we don't constantly do that translation back to Aussie dollar or US dollar. We just think of transhuman coin as transhuman coin. One transhuman coin equals one transhuman coin, and that's the sort of, you know, the price you put on, say, your services, what you do, your goods and services, and all the value that you put around it. And then it becomes just the currency you choose to adopt in the society and the community that you want to work with.
That's very great, Peter.
Right.
And
So
India
I
Future
have
Society, which is
one question. Like, since we are talking about transhuman coin so much, so and we are India Future Society, so would you like to give us some advice, like how we can spread this message across? And because like the transhuman movement in India is just gaining traction. I mean, people, they are very receptive to such kind of ideas, but then again, lack of awareness and all these things, especially lack of awareness regarding cryptocurrency in general in India, it actually helps the government to impose all sorts of bans and everything. So, you know, we need to build up that pressure, you know, spread the awareness so that the government, we can sway the government and we can actually make policies which are you know, positive towards the crypto community. So any advice to us from your part in regards to this?
Yeah, definitely get them to get them to buy. Yeah. You know, the best way that I've seen. Sorry, Nikesh, you go.
No, I was going to say the same thing. The best in India, the best way to get people attracted to something is to ban it. You know,
it's the FOMO effect.
You know, like if you look at telephones, you know, television, all those sorts of things, they were banned before they were made legal. You know, and they picked up. Anyway, sorry, Peter, go ahead.
That's a great idea. It's like, you know, you can't have it, you know, so they start searching ways to get around it. But yeah, like for a lot of people that are now holders of transhuman coin weren't transhumanists initially, but they found out more and more about transhumanism through like learning through what transhuman coin does. And so it's like they almost got educated about transhumanism and science and technology through this mechanism of trying to actually learn about cryptocurrencies. So obviously cryptocurrencies as an education piece first. So maybe start with the future society and teach people how to use this cryptocurrency and buy transhuman coin on the Binance Smart Chain. So like I've had so many walkthroughs with a lot of transhumanists all around the world, just getting on the phone going, all right, do you have a MetaMask wallet? All right, great. Now, don't tell me your don't tell me your secret phase. Do you know how to buy Binance coin? Okay, great. No, you don't. All right, I'm gonna have to transfer you some Binance coin. So, like, these are sort of things you gotta almost educate on step by step. But once they're set up, the great thing is once they're set up, they can deep dive into this in 2 months. They'll be an expert. Like I've had friends that's just now into DAOs and fully getting into Olympus DAO and a whole bunch of other decentralized exchanges, like turning the new way of doing bonds, treasury. This is an insane amount of innovation with Web3. And not to start with the metaverse even, right? So this is the beginning of something beautiful. And hopefully we'll all be interacting in the metaverse with our digital consciousness and transacting in transhuman coin in the peer-to-peer value that we have.
That's a great conversation, Peter and Nikesh. That's really great. And I think this discussion can continue and go on. There's lots of things to talk here and lots of ideas and concepts. I just want to add very little thing, and maybe we can go toward the end, that like what CBA is doing, being a brand and talking about cryptocurrency, it created quite of awareness as well, answering to the Sarah's question. I mean, just on the comment that maybe some bank like some of the largest bank in India, like a State Bank of India, or even ICICI, I don't know what's the full form of that, but that these two banks are the one of the largest. One is a private, one is a government held, and if they kind of put some movement around the cryptocurrency, I think that could also create a kind of awareness among people, but to at least go and Google it and what is that, how to use it, and things like that. But I'm also seeing the mainstream advertisement on newspaper about cryptocurrency in India. And newspaper is also not a newspaper which is in English, but in the local language. So that's also kind of these also gonna create a quite of awareness, and maybe that's why there's a quite a buzz in India recently. And but of course only among youngsters, still those who hold the money like a bit more savings, have saving, or someone who can invest, they are still away from this domain. So well, with that, I would say thank you again for both of you, and hopefully this transhuman coin become the coin for everything. And yeah, and thank you for Nikesh.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Nikesh. It's great to meet
thank
you.
you. Have a nice
Looking forward to catching him afterwards as well.
Thank you for